requesting variances of one kind or another. We'll take them one in order. The first thing I'd like to do is a little bit of administrative work. I'd like to ask the folks on the board if they have had a chance to look at the meeting minutes from March, and if you have, do you have any corrections, addendums, or other comments to make? And if not, can I have a motion to approve them?
I'll make that vote.
We have a motion to approve, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Good. We'll set that aside. Very good. All right, so if I put on my glasses here, I'll tell you the first item up here is Mrs. Mary Jane Yango or other to explain what you're looking for, why you're seeking relief from the current regulations. This has to do with the parcel at 63 Park Avenue, and I believe you're looking for a lot coverage variance. Okay.
My name is Barry Barone. I'm a contractor for Mary Jane and Jack Yango. We looked at doing an addition on their house. They need a first floor master bedroom. It's an aging in place. They love their house. They've been there 40 years. We actually did an addition on their house 40 years ago. It was a little family. Now, they love to stay in that house. It's where they raised their family. They love the neighborhood. They want to put a master bedroom, master bathroom, first floor laundry. So we did the responsible thing. They had an old tape location map. And Will said, I can't tell what the side setbacks are here. So we did the responsible thing and we got an instrument survey. Gave it to Tom Pellet, the architect. He calls me, side setbacks are fine. Your lot coverage is too much. So 25% is allowed. With the calculations, it went just over 30% lot coverage. We went to 31 to round it off, 31%. So the Engels really need this addition to stay in that house. There's no detriment to the neighbors. One of the things I noted is that lot is very small. It's only 50 feet wide. If that house was on a bigger lot, the coverage issue wouldn't be there. Most lots there are bigger, but that was an old part of Webster. The lots were quite small. Matter of fact, we sent out notices to 95 neighboring properties. Within 500 feet. That's how small the lots are. 500-foot radius. There were 95 tax account numbers within 500 feet. So Mary Jean and Jack are here with me tonight if you have any questions for them. But that's, I'll tell you what, the aging in place population is the largest growing demographic in our area. Our school populations are going down. Our aging population is going up. I think it's commendable that people want to stay in their house as long as they possibly can.
Very good. And just so that everybody understands, this particular piece of property is owned R2. It's a residential R2. What that means is that the lot sizes are 9,600 square feet. By code, what we have to do is we bring them in at 25% of lot coverage so that everyone doesn't build right up to the edges of their property. This goes over it a little bit. So what they're needing is variance to move it up by probably 6 percentage points is what I'm hearing, to go to 31%.
That's correct.
Very good. Questions by any members of the board?
You sent out to 80-some different properties. Did anybody object?
We got no negative responses whatsoever. We got no responses whatsoever. Actually, I don't know if the Anglos submitted this to you, but when we met with the planning board, they had a petition signed by the adjacent neighbors in favor of the project. So that's a matter of record with the planning board. Those are the two people this would really affect.
Yeah, the two neighbors are, no objections.
No objection. They're the only people that can see the addition, because from the street you can't see it. It's all to the rear of the house.
You're going to be able to save that tree?
That little tree's got to go.
It's too bad you can't transplant it. That's beautiful.
Come on down with your shovel, you can take it.
The backhoe there, you bring your trailer.
So I'm assuming the addition is going to kind of match the existing house?
same siding, same roofing. It's gonna have a reverse gable coming off the back, so it's a very attractive look. It's not just a shed roof, it's a gable coming off. And the room sizes are just adequate. They're not over, because first thing we thought is, well, let's make the room a little smaller so we could meet and Tom Pellet said, absolutely, you can't do that. You just can't do that. God bless him. So the bathroom's just a modest bathroom, the laundry room's just enough for laundry room, and walk-in closet, and the bedroom's about 14 by 60. So it's not huge.
So it's kind of
So we really
proportional
could
to the
reduce the
house.
size to help lot coverage significantly.
Foundation is concrete slab.
Crawl space. The addition we did for them before was a crawl space. We're gonna match that. The new addition's going to have its own heating and air conditioning system because it's way too far away from the furnace. The furnace is in the original house. So we're gonna zone it, give it its own heating and air conditioning. It'll be about a 5-block crawl space, about 40 inches deep.
Other questions from anyone on the board? Okay, thank you very much. Right now, I'll invite anyone from the public to speak for or against this project if they desire. No one desires? Very good. All right, so we'll close that down. We need a couple of things here. First thing off is we need to deal with seeker on this.
Go ahead. I'll make a motion that the zoning board be declared the lead agency for this matter, and it be type 2 under seeker.
Okay, we've got a motion.
I'll second.
Seconded twice. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Very good. All right, now let's deal with the requested variance. I think the most simple way, if you're going to talk about approving this, would be to grant a variance to allow 31% lot coverage for this particular parcel.
Well, I'll make a motion that we grant a variance to allow 31% lot coverage for the proposed addition at 63 Park Avenue.
Thank you, Bill. We've got a motion. Do we hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. There you go. We're all set. And thanks for staying.
Great, thank you.
All right. Next up on our list, we have a Mark and Kayla. Is it Picardo?
Yeah.
Very good. And they're at 237 Judson Street. Tax ID number is listed. They're requesting a variance to construct a 120 square foot accessory structure. That's a shed, where the current zoning only allows for 100 square feet. So they want a 20-foot variance or variance. Tell us why you need this and what you've done in preparation for it.
Everybody, Mark and my wife Kayla, we just moved in January. We're both teachers. Kayla's in the Webster district. With the hopes of doing some upgrades and maintenance to our yard and our landscape and whatnot, purchase some equipment, a rider and a push, and some other things, and still just have a one-car garage. And in order to be able to maintain and hold all the equipment we want to keep our beautiful lawn, we're hoping to get a shed to store those things, and then to maintain the garage also for space for the cars and whatnot. I don't have a whole lot.
Okay, so
Very
you're
helpful.
requesting a variance to build a 120 square foot shed in the backyard that won't impinge on the side yard or rear yard setbacks?
No, there's a 14 by 14 slab that already exists in the yard, and the dimension of the shed would be 12 by 10.
Okay, and this pad already exists because there's a shed there?
There was a shed that previously existed.
Okay.
So you're gonna put this right on there?
Yes.
What? Center. that.
Will, do we have any records of variance of the previous property for the shed?
No. We gathered signatures from 18 other neighbors, no objections.
I walked
Door
door
to
to door. I
door.
know everybody.
Way to meet your neighbors.
I did,
Yeah, it was a good
yeah.
opportunity,
I went
absolutely.
to Zios and, yeah, visited everyone.
Good. No other questions from anyone up here? I'll invite anyone in the general public to speak for or against this project. You can stay right there, you don't have to come all the way up.
My name is Charles Stiles. I live at 229 Judson Street. I'm two houses down from these folks. This house that they moved into was a complete refurbish of a house, beautiful job, but it wasn't good enough. These people are doing more refurbishing and doing a great job. It is taking one of the worst eyesores in our neighborhood, with the refurbishment, and become a really nice house. And in terms of the sale price, I note that the sale price is comparable or maybe even above what the neighborhood had been getting, which to me says they did a great job of refurbishing this house, renovating the whole lot of that. Secondly, the shed they're talking about is tucked way in the back corner of the lot. There's a 5 or 6 foot fence from the yard behind them. And this is really out of the way. There are even a couple of locations in our neighborhood where there isn't just one shed, there are 2. So that, you know, and I know by code, I believe by code, there's only one allowed, so, you know, it's not detrimental to the neighborhood. What these folks are doing is very positive to our neighborhood, and it's gonna make the value of my house go up, and I'm all for it.
Well, Mr. Stiles, thank you very much for those comments, I do appreciate them. Anyone else?
John Cahill, 220 Judson Street. I'm definitely a proponent of allowing the shed. I just echo everything that Charlie has said. They're working very diligently on the yard. They bought a house that was, like Charlie said, it was in shambles, and it was completely gutted on the interior down to the studs and renovated. And they're just, you know, taking the renovations that were put in the house before they bought it, and now they're taking that and just running with it, and just improving the lot significantly, and it's just, it has done a lot for our neighborhood, and the least we can do is allow the shed, and quite frankly, I would have asked for the 14 by 14 shed to put it on, to encompass the entire pad that was already there, but that's just me, but, yeah, I think we should most certainly, it's a positive recommendation that I have for them.
Mike, no.
Great couple. Well, I'm trying to work a deal with my mower and story and this and that, so.
Well, thank you very much,
Sure.
Mr. Cahill, or Mayor Cahill. All right, any other comments for or against this? I'll give everybody an opportunity. Okay, board has had an opportunity to ask questions. Thank you very much. We've allowed general public. We'll close that portion down, and now what we're looking for is a seeker.
I'll make the usual motion that this be declared that the zoning board be declared the lead agency for this matter, and that it's a type 2 action under seeker.
Okay, we've got that motion on the table. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. We've settled with the seeker issue. Now what we need is a motion on the floor to either grant or deny the 20 square foot variance to allow for the building of the shed.
I'll make that motion
Okay.
to allow for a 20 square foot variance.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to grant a 20 square foot variance. Now we can have that other part.
Yeah.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Good luck, and thank you for joining our community.
Nice job on that house. I knew the previous owner, and
Thank
they
And by the way, when you get old like me, you'll pay somebody to do your lawn, all right? Thanks again. Nope.
Thank you. Good luck.
Got it? All right. The third and final item on our agenda tonight is, I believe we have Mr. Mark Van Up, developer of Brittany Woods Townhomes. Tax ID is listed. They're located at the southeast corner of Ridge and Phillips Road. There's an application for a preliminary site plan review to develop 13.4 acres for a 14-building townhome development. The applicant seeks relief from the current zoning regarding number of buildings per square acre, or per acre. They're requesting 14 townhouses on 13.4 acres. What they would need to not be here is 14 full acres. So,
Correct.
let you go and tell us what it is you're looking for and why you need relief from the current zoning.
Great. Thank you, everyone, and good evening. My name is Scott Sedolnik. I'm an attorney, and I represent Mark Van Epps and the Brittany Woods Townhomes project. I'm here on behalf of Mark and as the developer. I also have Jack Buchholz, who is our head engineer for the project, tonight with me as well. So Jack and I will be fielding questions. Some of them, I can answer, some of them Jack can. Essentially, my client is under contract. As many of you know, we've had several meetings before the planning board a couple of weeks ago on this very issue. We've been before the Webster Village Board on the matter of zoning. The property, as many of you know, was recently rezoned from planned unit development to residential. And so with that, the residential, the code as it pertains to residential real property, as the current zoning provides that there can be one townhouse building per acre. So what our request is, our site plan calls for there to be 14 townhouse buildings. And so originally when this project came about, which was last summer, the discussions with the Village of Webster between the village and my client was that there would be basically the way that the layout would be, and Jack can help me out on this, the way the layout would be would provide that we could have 13 townhouse buildings to have that number of units. In our discussions with the village, it was decided that in order for the most aesthetically pleasing proposal was to have space in between each townhouse building. So by adding the space in between each townhouse building, it made it so that we could no longer have 14 townhouse buildings on 13.4 acres due to the zoning requirement that I just mentioned. So what our request is for us to be allowed to build 14 townhouse buildings on 13.4 acres. The variance amounts to, instead of one townhouse building per 1 acre, one townhouse building per 0.96 acres. I think that, as we've discussed before, and as put out by the Webster Economic Development Alliance, the project in question is going to be very beneficial for the Village of Webster. It's going to generate several jobs. It's going to increase the tax liability of the owner, which will net the village a significant amount of new tax dollars. That is outweighed by, I believe that outweighs any potential detriment to any neighbor. We're allowed to build 13 buildings. If we're allowed to build 14 buildings, I don't see how that could be a detriment to any neighbor. We did send out the notice to, I didn't count how many people. So one of my paralegals sent the notices out. I don't know how many. There was many notices that were sent. We did have the planning board meeting a couple weeks ago, and there were comments which were fielded by myself and our engineer at that meeting. So I don't know if Jack, you have anything further you'd like to add?
Yeah, just briefly.
Sure.
My name is Jack Buholtz, I'm with TY Lin, I'm the site engineer on this. I just wanted to point out that we are asking for 14 buildings here, but we tried to come up with a layout that we think works based on similar projects that this developer has done. And we're actually permitted, if you look at the number, the code, we're actually permitted 8 units per building.
That is correct.
So with 13 buildings, we're permitted 104 units. We're proposing 68, which is about 2/3. And building coverage, we're permitted 25%, and we're doing 17%, which is about 2/3. So even though we're asking for 14 buildings, it's not like we're crowding beyond the capacity of the site. Just wanted to make that point.
Understood, thank you.
I would like to point out one other thing, and that is, we went through the secret process on this for rezoning and development of the site, and the village board was the lead agency, and they granted a negative declaration on that. I don't know how that affects you. You may not have to do secret, maybe you think you do, but I just thought I'd throw that out.
Okay, and did you do the full long form?
Yes, we did.
Okay, thank you.
I think
Anything
that's-
else?
I think that's it.
Okay,
I got several questions,
yep, what I'd like to do is
because
just,
I haven't been to any of these.
and the only thing I'd ask is just give us your name for the record and your address,
John
and
Viggiani, 203 Rayfield Circle.
thank you very much, sir.
First of all, I'd like to be able to see your drawing there, it's kind of hidden.
Yeah. Let's move it.
Now, I thought each unit was going to be on a 1 acre lot. Are those 4 units at a time? And
Sorry, I made noise.
The requirement is that you have, your total site may not have more than 1 unit per acre, but that doesn't mean that you can only have 1 unit on each acre.
So this one down in the bottom corner, is that 4 units, 2 units of 4?
Yes, that's 2 buildings,
And 4 condos each?
yes.
Oh, okay, so I understand your drawing now, okay.
Was that, did you have any further questions?
No, that's all the questions I had.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for
What
or
is,
against, or what? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Approximately, what is the square footage of each unit, or are they all gonna be different, and what kind of a price range?
I can't speak to price range as the engineer, but I can tell you that there are 2 different styles of unit. The narrower ones are 2-story, and the wider ones are ranch.
Okay,
The ranch, I believe, is 1,100 square feet exclusive of the garage, and the 2-story is, I believe, 1,400 or thereabouts square feet exclusive of the garage. Each one has a full basement too, which is not included in that, and everyone has a 2-car garage.
So I'll speak to as far as cost. These are, to clarify, these are not going to be condos, they're going to be townhomes. And the townhomes are going to be developed by my client, and then after development, maintained by my client, and then rented out. The rents that we are discussing will be similar to our other projects that we have. We have a project in Gates and one in Chilai, similar aesthetically, and also similar in layout. And our rents there run between $1,350 and $1,500.
I don't wanna act stupid, but I am confused by condo and what did you say it was, townhouse?
They're
What's the difference?
well,
Purchase of townhomes.
so
Come on, give me a good difference.
So,
Rents versus home.
if you're talking about townhomes are being, the one difference here is that townhomes are being rented out. There's also a difference between structure-wise as how tall they are as well. So these are townhomes that are gonna be owned by the developer.
So they're rentals, they're not owned by anyone?
Oh, they're rentals?
So it's transient people.
Rentals.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
That's all my questions, thank you.
All right. But Steve, anyone else would, go ahead, I'm sorry, Bill?
Are these all two-bedroom units, or?
No. I think the ranches, I think, are two-bedroom, and I think the two-story are three-bedroom. Honestly, I'm not the architect, and I say that with confidence, but not with certainty.
Makes sense.
So you don't have a drawing of what they would look like then?
I
Yeah,
do
as a
have
matter
a
of fact,
drawing
we do.
of the exterior. In fact, I brought one,
Yeah.
if it helps. This is what the,
Thanks.
Oh, okay.
this is what a two-story looks like. Now, we're limited to 8, I'm not sure how many are shown here, but this is the two-story one. And this is what you would see if you're driving along Phillips Road.
Okay.
The one-story ranch, by the way, all the units along Phillips Road, this is Phillips Road here, all the units along Phillips Road are the two-story. These are also, these are two-story as well. These are all ranch here. In fact, Mark feels that the ranches do better. This is what the ranches look like.
Subsidized, section 8.
No.
But you can't, it's illegal to actually say who you can and can't rent to though, correct?
Of course, you can rent, right, but.
So it could be DSS, it could be, okay, yeah, just clarifying.
Could you give your name and
I didn't, but I can. Okay.
Did you want to speak a little bit more? Because you look like you are prepared.
Sure will.
Well, there you go.
Kimberly Schwenzer. My great uncle was actually on the zoning board years ago. 1449 Ridge Road.
Thank you.
So I've said this before, but I know not in front of you gentlemen. So last week we had our last meeting, two weeks ago. This place was full of all the neighbors, basically not for it, against it. But there's a lot of reasons, not just the aesthetics of it and things like that, but just one of the huge issues, and I'm sure you've all been made aware of it through the other meetings, is the whole idea of the water and the drainage and all that going on. You're taking 13 acres of permeable surface and making it impermeable. We already get flooding and we get cresting, our creek behind crests. We already have issues back there with water, which again, I'm sure you're all aware of. So the whole thing for me is if this is actually happening, which it kind of just seems that it is, that it's sort of been decided, I'm not sure why we have to push for the most amount of buildings possible. You know what I mean? Like, why can't we just make it the 1 acre per building, less impermeable space, more more area for water to drain. As Mr. Baker talked about saving that one tree, which I'm totally with you. I'm all about the nature part of things and the forest and deforestation of this great town that we've been in. And you're taking out 13 acres, wiping it out. So, if we stuck to the 1 acre per unit, you'd save some trees. You'd have more permeable surface, so I'm not sure why we have to completely push the envelope by building just as many possible as, that's my whole idea is,
Okay.
It just seems like, let's just, if they're gonna do it, give them what they want, but can we bend a little bit? And I know they changed some plans according to the way the village wanted them, and I know they can have, as the engineer had said, they could have had more units per, that they're not, but the fact is, they are adding this whole other section there that maybe isn't necessary, and maybe will help all the neighbors as far as not only aesthetics, noise, more people, all that, but as far as the permeable surface and issues that we're already having with drainage and water, and the trees.
Kimberly, could you show the board on the plans whereabouts the area of the flooding is you're talking about?
Yeah, well, obviously we all know that this is wetlands back here that are being impinged on, that haven't been delineated by the DEA in the last 20-something years, so I know the engineer did that, but It hasn't actually officially been done in a very, very long time. So we get, let's see here, here's Ridge, so we get flooding all along here. So all of our homes that are along Ridge, and there's a creek that runs, it's not on here, right? I mean,
Well, yeah, it comes out of that structure right there.
okay, so the creek's here. So there's already quite a bit of issue with that, and here's some of my neighbors here that can also speak to that. So, yes, we already have an issue with that. So that's a big concern for obviously a lot of the neighbors. I know these people last week were talking about, or 2 weeks ago, were talking about, this is literally in their backyard. They could, I know one thing that was talked about at the meeting two weeks ago was why not, make a park area for the kids that could potentially be in this place. Otherwise, there's nowhere for them to go. I don't know, just trying to.
The park area on that piece of the parcel is.
Yeah, they said there was nothing that was allowed for park, isn't that correct? There's no green space that's allowed in the plans?
No, there's right across Kircher, there's. not
Right across
Kircher,
where?
Fort Foster, right across the street where the band shell is.
Like in
It's
PV?
all wide open there, there's, down the road, there's basketball courts, whole nine
Like
yards.
Phillips Village?
Yeah, they could use
So you're
it.
gonna have all these people paying $1,500 a month go to Phillips Village to?
I'm telling you, that's
Well, I
what,
think-
where,
I think
that's
that
where,
we-
that's what's available. And right across the street, that there's all sorts of green space in there also.
Okay, but we know how many times the cops are called to PV on a weekly basis. I'm not
Well,
sure
that's
if
a
the best
developer's
idea.
made a decision to build there, and that's his
Right.
decision, so.
That's the option for the tenants, right?
I
Anyway,
think we also talked about the fact that, at the last meeting, talked about there was some concern about where the kid's gonna go. But if our project mirrors what we have in our two other projects, there won't be 4 kids in each unit. There will be children there, but it's our demographic is more, if it mirrors, which we expect it to, our projects in Gates and Chi-Line. These are young professionals in their 20s and early 30s who, don't want to be tied down with purchasing a house and maintaining that house, would rather live in a high-end apartment townhouse such as this.
how many 3-bedroom plans?
Sure.
How many 3-bedroom units are there?
Probably between 25 and 30.
So I would think the 3-bedroom units are appealing to families.
Possibly. But
Not
they could also
always,
be
right, not always.
appealing to 3 friends who want to live together.
Excuse me, I think an ideal place for the park would be in that lower corner in the left end where those 8 units are.
Oh, like,
It's a wetland.
there's wetland here?
No,
Like you're building,
Take them 8 units out of there, make that
we're
the
like
park.
right on the wetland with this whole, with that whole
If this is
unit.
germane, I'd like to speak to it after you go
Yeah, go
through
ahead.
the list. Are you done? Or?
For right now.
Well, I'd like to mention a couple things. First of all, the runoff is a big issue. And what we've done here that's not unique, but it's maybe a bit uncommon, is we are infiltrating all of the runoff from the developed site. In other words, we're not putting in a pond that discharges to a stream. So everything that is in this developed area, all of it is going into this. This is a pretreatment basin and this is an infiltration basin. We found the soil in here to be what I would call a medium sand, which is pretty unusual, almost like a beach sand. And we had professionals come in and do infiltration tests per the New York State DEC regulation format. And we came up with infiltration rates that were, minimum allowed is 0.5 inch per hour. And we had some that were over 100 inches per hour. So we had excellent, in this area, not everywhere, but in this particular area here, we have excellent infiltration. So what I'm telling you is we're going to put this into this basin and it's going to percolate into the ground like it does today. And a lot of this groundwater, I believe, eventually goes this way and goes down toward that stream that passes through.
That crusts.
So
Right.
really, I don't see much change from what's there today.
So in a perfect scenario, it will, but if we're getting torrential rains or lots of snow melt, right?
Well,
there-
we've
there's-
designed it, we think conservatively, and we've designed it for a 100-year event,
Mhm.
which we hope.
Will,
Yes, sir.
Can we make the assumption that as it is designed and as it's being built, that it meets all current codes?
According to the calculations and the data that we received, yes.
Okay.
I would like to mention something else. There is a stream that comes through here, and this entire area up from here north, if you can see that, we're just gonna leave that as it is. We'll maintain the lawn, but we're not doing any development. So that's available for passive recreation if you like. We don't want to do anything with this stream. People have asked us if we would drain the wetlands here. We can't really do that because it's a wetland and it's protected. So we're gonna stay away from the wetland, which goes onto our site here and this wetland here, with the exception of a very small part we can do, which is less than a tenth of an acre, which we have to get a permit from the Corps of Engineers for. So what I want to say is I think we've made a pretty responsible effort to manage all the site-related issues on this. And we have a unique opportunity here that, honestly, in all my years, I rarely see an opportunity like this for infiltration.
Okay, thank you. I want to make sure that we get everybody's comments. I think Mayor Cahill had some comments.
I just had a question for Jack that, with respect to the wetlands, I'm pretty sure that that was discussed at length with the planning board, and the wetland issue was definitely addressed in the DEC. There's no problems with that whatsoever. And, you know, we've been looking at this development for probably 4 or 5 months and have had numerous meetings about it and asked a great deal of questions. I was concerned about the infiltration basin at the first meeting, and I had asked Jack to come in and speak with myself and Will and Jake, and I did some research on that, and we sat down and spoke for probably an hour and a half. And Jack answered all our questions. I walked out of that meeting comfortable with the responses that I had gotten, and subsequent to that meeting, we had they had an open house to answer additional questions. And the village board looked at this project very, and put it under a microscope, and we're all proponents of it. That's why we changed the zoning to facilitate for this project. Webster Economic Development Alliance also has looked at this project, and we're proponents of this project also. I've spoken and gotten emails and letters from numerous businesses in the village, and all staunch proponents of the project.
Thank you. And did you have, before I move on, did you have a comment or a question? I thought I saw your hand. We'll get back to everybody. No, we're not leaving until we've heard everybody. Go ahead.
I want to comment on a few things. One, the Economic Development Agency, according to what we heard at that one meeting, this is going to save Main Street. These, 70 units? 68 units are going to save Main Street. They're going to do so much business that they're going to have 3 times the business we have now, is practically the way it was explained to us. These people are going to walk the 6 blocks down Main Street and shop at the Main Street stores. They're not going to get in their cars and just keep on driving. One question I had, recent development within the village, which is being constructed now, donated to the village $175,000, I believe it was, to ensure that they got their zoning that they wanted. Have you, since you have left little or no space except right along Phillips Road for play, and that's a very narrow space, and some games could or activity overlap in the road, have you considered to accommodate the kids to make a donation of some play equipment to the park adjacent to you? Has that been considered by the developer?
I think that
I mean, I think that would go a long way to solving the problem of where the kids are playing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're here, you know, that would be a question.
To come up, I know, as we continue on.
I mean, that would be a question for a developer, for my client, and I don't know that, I'm his attorney.
Well, I don't realize that, he's not here tonight, but I think it would be a very good gesture to donate some play equipment to that part of the empty field next door.
Yeah, so that's more of a comment that wouldn't it be nice? Okay.
Yeah, it would go a long way towards goodwill,
Yeah, I got it.
towards your project. You are taking away land that was designated on the village master plan as open space.
Well, we're not taking away land because we're purchasing it from Wegmans.
I know, but-
It's not owned by the village. If it was owned by the village and we were taking it. by
No,
some
but
sort
you
of
are changing what
reverse
the village
equitable
had
land.
intended to do with this.
Yeah.
And the village has been accommodating you to allow you to change what the village got together a few years ago and decided they wanted to do with this land.
And-
So I think some goodwill gestures would go
No,
along
no,
with.
Okay,
I will
you know what,
certainly
thank you
discuss
for that.
Discuss it
And
with my client.
rather than rehash that, I know that there are some other folks, thank you
Well,
for
could
the
I just-
comment.
just
It was
one-
heard by everyone.
Could I say one thing? please?
Sure,
I
absolutely.
did put a call and an email, into the new planning board chairman, asking him how the planning board would like to see the recreational open space thing handled. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but
Craywick.
thank you. But he sent me an email back, he said, I'm very busy, I will talk to you about it. I haven't heard back from him. We will be going in on June 1st to talk to him, and I'll probably get some input, I would hope, before that. But I've actually sought him out to ask about his input on this.
Okay. Yes, sir, you want to just name and address, please,
Good
and then
evening,
tell
my
us
name
what's
is
on
Paul
your mind.
Bruns, I live at 1455 Ridge Road, I'm east of the project. I have one first question for Jack, if I may. Is there a change in the size of the description of the ponds, the emitting ponds?
I'm not sure that they've changed or not, but they're certainly big enough. I changed the configuration.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, the one to the left it's called pre-treatment. It's a sedimentation
Right.
basin. Actually, this also has tremendous perk infiltration. The idea is that runoff would go into that and then would go on. I'm not sure it's even going to make it out of this. But yes, I have reconfigured it.
Okay, so are they larger than what they were initially
I
were?
think they are slightly larger.
The final emitting pond is larger,
I think so, maybe a little bit.
but you're still gonna have a safety overflow pipe that's gonna run into our
I have
existing.
an 8-inch overflow pipe. This is above the 100-year flood elevation. That would carry flow to the 48-inch storm sewer that's there.
It's going to the storm sewer,
Yes,
your overflow,
yes.
not into the creek, where your initial, when we had the open house, you showed the pipe flowing towards the creek. You didn't-
No, I said it goes into the storm sewer here. There's a storm sewer that runs right here.
On the borderline.
Right, and we would put that in there. I don't think it would ever be used, but it's there.
So we won't be getting any of that over into our existing creek.
Well, I think the storm sewer goes into the creek.
The storm sewer
I
is
think-
still gonna go into the creek.
Well, whatever it does today, it will do tomorrow, and I think it does go into the creek. But
Well, that's a
remember,
bit different description from our original this talk.
I don't believe.
Nobody ever said that the storm sewers, I thought all the storm sewers were supposed to go into the emitting ponds.
They all do. This storm sewer is not ours. It's an existing storm sewer that runs through here. It's been there for, I don't know how many years.
Will can answer that.
Is that correct, Bill?
Yeah. What he's saying is what was on the original plans.
I guess it wasn't clear to
Oh,
the public at that time
okay.
that his overflow pipe was gonna run into that drainage pipe, but it's still gonna wind up going into the creek that's behind our property.
Only during the 100-year flood,
No, not
which is
during the
like
100.
the,
This
what's
is,
it?
this overflow is above the 100-year level.
Okay, so it's above the 100-year flood line, which means worst case scenario. This is like, we're talking about catastrophic event.
Like houses falling into Lake Ontario? Kind of like that?
Well, yeah.
Okay, just checking.
That's right.
We are
So-
kind of going through some global warming.
It's also a very small pipe, an 8-inch pipe. It's going into a 48-inch pipe. I mean, it's a very, the volume, the storage volume of this is quite large, and the infiltration rate is very great. So if, for some reason, I don't know, it didn't function the way it should, or we had some 500-year event or something, and it did rise above the 100-year level enough, it would start to seep into that 8-inch pipe.
Let me just add that this is standard practice. There's always an overflow for these ponds to go into an area, you know, if it goes beyond the 100-year floodplain. They always have this overflow area where it seeks, you know, a level. So,
To the board, this has been my initial problem with the development. Jack, on numerous times, and with Will, have adequately explained what the system is and how it's supposed to function. However, Jack himself has also gone down the end of our creek, past his development, and visually looked at the drainage pipe that goes under Ridge Road that our creek runs into. And it's smaller in diameter than the actual one that leads across from Phillips Road at the head. And our request was earlier with the village board, and I'm requesting the same thing to the planning board here, or zoning board, that something's got to be done to ensure the residents along Ridge Road that are affected by this creek as it is now that floods, that in the event, all the good numbers and all the good things you can put together, once the engineer is gone, he's done, the village is stuck with these retaining ponds. Will has said that their responsibility is to check these ponds periodically to make sure that they're functioning correctly. But if they don't, then the residents along the creek on Ridge Road are affected by the overflow, which we are already now. The property that's in the white on the east side of this, nothing's been said about buffering their property
From this wooded wetland area?
from that wooded wetland there. They're using a neighbor's wooded wetland as their buffer and not doing anything on their own property to buffer it for privacy to the surrounding community that has enjoyed for many years.
Well, with the exception of trees that we're not going to take down along our property line.
You're not taking trees down there, because you had said at one time that would be affecting the existing drainage ditch.
We won't
There are
we won't plant trees where the existing storm sewer is, which is along here.
And that's on the village property?
Right, it's right about on the property line.
On the property line. So you're gonna leave some foliage or trees?
If there's a tree, if there are trees there that are beyond our pavement, we're not gonna take them down. But we're not gonna plant any where there's a storm sewer.
Okay, the storm sewer. I got ahead of myself. I wanted to congratulate Ms. Swinzer on her excellent statements relating to the project, and I concur with everything she said 100%. So I'm looking for ourselves some protection from the village for potential existing water in our creek that runs behind our properties that is in the town, but we take village water in there. And I'm also looking for some kind of buffer along the property lines that's going to protect our viewpoint against the new development. And as Ms. Schwinzer has quickly put out, that it looks like it's pretty much done deal. It looks like an interesting project, but I want to make sure that all the residents in the area are protected or have some kind of guarantee that it's not going to be a problem in the future.
Fair enough. Well heard, thank you.
Thank you.
Will, I want to come over to you, and you knew I was going to, and David. Okay, at a very high level, clearly and succinctly, explain to us the sum and substance of the issue, potential corrective actions, and are they within our purview, David?
We're dealing more with site plan issues
That's what I thought.
rather than zoning issues. And this is going to be in front of the planning board in a couple of weeks. So that would be a good opportunity to address these types of issues.
And that's the appropriate place to address them. All right. And will the sum and substance of the flooding and the interconnection of the pipelines in the 8 inches and the 100-year, and the smaller one that takes everything down. I know a little bit about groundwater, and I know a little bit about groundwater flow. So tell this board what you think the issues are, and what the design considerations are that are currently in place
Okay.
for this.
So in reviewing the plans and the type of stormwater facility that they're proposing, we have in our possession, from the DEC, documents that show us the standards for the design of those things. What they're proposing to design are in those documents. So the DEC says, yeah, it's okay for them to do that as long as the initial tests, as Jack pointed out that they had performed, certified that, which they did. They actually, according to the calculations and the
At
tests.
a higher permeation rate.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. So they actually go above and beyond what the DEC requires for that particular type of stormwater facility installation to be. Now, do I have a crystal ball? Am I omniscient? Absolutely not. However, we go by the data that's presented. And we can say, based on what they presented and what the DEC requires, we say, okay, this is how we balance it out, and this is the decision that we make based on the evidence and the data. So, based on what they're designing and everything, yes, we say that's fine. However, from a administrative standpoint, as a municipality, we require that any stormwater facility that is installed has a stormwater maintenance agreement with us. The stormwater maintenance agreement basically, in a nutshell, says once a year you're responsible to have an engineer inspect the site and guarantee that the facility is still functioning according to the design standards that it was put in.
And that would be the detention ponds.
Well, the infiltration basin.
The infiltration.
In this
basin,
particular
okay.
case, but yes, correct. Yes, so we have these.
But that wouldn't extend over to anything that drained into the creek, or wouldn't something across under the road that goes into a smaller pipe?
No,
I
it
think
would
that's what
only
I
go, it would only go by whatever
Okay,
was installed
it's
at the site.
specific to the project.
Their
Got it.
stormwater facility, we call it. And so we have this agreement with them, and once a year, I send a letter out to all of the projects that have these stormwater facilities and say they need to be inspected by a qualified engineer to verify that they're still functioning according to the standards in which they were installed. If the engineer comes back and says, we got a problem here, then they have to have somebody go in there and clean it out or do whatever it takes to make sure that they're restored to functionality. Now, worst case scenario, if they say, you know what, we're not going to do anything, then the village has the ability, based on an easement agreement in that same stormwater management agreement, to go in there and take care of it ourselves or hire somebody to do it. And then we charge that owner back the amount it takes us to do that. And actually, I have to send my letters out pretty soon here because I'm coming up on that. You were going to say something, Mike?
I already sent mine out.
Oh, did you?
Okay. Chronic or long-term issues with flooding.
Okay.
Are there any?
Well, based on the response from the residents and my own personal observations, that particular area that they outlined, where there's a creek that runs through, which I want to say it's Mill Creek, runs through the properties, they do have chronic problems with flooding. However, a lot of the problems happen, as was noted, when it goes under the road at Ridge Road. Things plug that outlet, and once they clear that out, typically the flooding subsides. I think there was something recent where there was a Christmas tree or something that plugged underneath the road. Anybody? Okay. That particular road is a state road, so what we would have to do is, and just so you know, the town has a copy of these plans and they're reviewing them as well. Jeff Benway, who's also an engineer, who's the Commissioner of Public Works, he's looking at them. And if it is determined that something needs to be done with that outlet going underneath the road there, we will contact the state and ask them if they could help us out and take care of that particular area.
Here's hoping.
Yeah, I know.
Seems like it should have been done a long time ago.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Sure.
You guys have any questions that you want to go over here?
No, actually, he answered them.
I got one, Mark.
Go ahead, sir.
I just, I thought those were retention ponds, but you're saying they're, what's the other name? What's the, how do you change the classification for what?
Infiltration basins, they don't contain, they don't hold water, they're like a sponge, they soak it up.
Oh, okay, all right.
Well, they'll hold water, you'll see water in there, but it will just go in the
But it's not a
ground.
retention pond then?
Well,
Not technically.
And
Not
there's,
technically.
it doesn't have a surface discharge.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
One question about the perk test, how far down is it in that location before you hit bedrock? I know right here where we stand, it's only about 3 feet.
They went down, bedrock, we don't know how deep it is there.
How far down did you go for your,
They went down 12 feet,
okay.
but the bottom of the basin, I think, is only down about 8 feet.
The reason I ask is because I'm wondering if it's gonna perk, not go perk down, but it's gonna perk sideways and seep out into that creek.
I think eventually the groundwater from this area goes to that creek today.
Yeah, so it goes down, but it goes down and goes sideways
I
into,
think it does.
With
Oh.
13 acres of permeable surface, we still flood.
yeah, so,
Right, so what we're gonna do is the same amount of rain is gonna fall, whether you develop it or not.
yeah.
Today it goes into the ground, most of it, and it goes into the groundwater, and I think it eventually finds its way to that creek.
Don't
What we're gonna do
trees
is
suck
we're
it
gonna
up too?
develop it, the same amount of water is gonna fall.
Right.
We're gonna take it all into our basins, and we're gonna infiltrate it into the same ground and let it go to the creek. So I don't think we're gonna help the situation for you, but I don't
And-
think we're gonna hurt the situation for you.
Well,
I
if you
don't
put
think
it
we're
all,
gonna change it.
put it all in one area, under its own pressure, it's gonna percolate through the side walls and down and out a little faster than it would if it was spread out over the entire area, would be my estimate, that, you know. Not being an engineer,
Maybe, but it's gotta, you know.
being a fireman and seeing a lot of water run in my life,
Kim?
I just wanted to speak to what Mayor Cahill had said about all these different boards and everybody's on board with it and it seems like a favorable project and whatnot. Not one of those people lives in the area, like no one lives along, who's going to be affected potentially by it? Either aesthetically, noise-wise, construction for 2 years, or any of this possible flooding. So, of course, people are favorable, they think it's gonna save Main Street, but fact is, there's a lot of factors that are affecting the many people that live around there. And again, you can do 1,000 tests, and engineers are great. I know a lot of them, my brother-in-law's an engineer, but you don't have like he had said, you don't have a crystal ball, you don't know. Did any of us think that we were gonna have houses falling into the lake right now? No, I mean, one guy that on the news, he was 40 feet from and his house is being demolished, you know, so we don't know, there's a lot of things happening with climate change and everything, so it's just, we already have an issue, so I understand, and again, I'm not an engineer, maybe I'm just not wrapping my head around it, but how you can take an infiltration basin and think that's going to take this now 13 acres of impermeable surface that was sucked up by trees and plants and foliage, and we still have an issue, how an infiltration basin is going to be okay. I don't know, I just think...
Just to clarify, we've got 13.4 acres.
Right.
We have a 25% coverage within that 13.4 acres. So we got about 3 acres worth of impermeable surface. The rest of it is permeable, it's either grasses or otherwise, but it's somewhere around 3 or 4
Is that
acres.
is that including all the parking lots and the roads and all that? because those are not permeable.
Probably not,
Right,
probably
those
not.
are not permeable.
But there's
Sidewalks,
Yeah, I would, if you look at this, the buildings are 17%. So I would say maybe it's 27% or so if you add in the pavement,
Okay.
I would say.
it just seems, I guess my whole thing is, you know, it's, everything keeps getting passed along and approved and whatnot. It just seems that a concession would be, again, instead of stretching that 1 acre, you know, ordinance that, or zoning, that, you know, make a concession, take out one of the buildings. You're gonna make a little less money, I get it, like, that stinks, but take out one, you know, that'll be a concession for the entire neighborhood, everyone who lives all around there. And you have a lot of housing developments behind it, everybody on Ridge. So not only, you know, that could potentially help a lot of these issues that people are, and again, we had a room full of people here 2 weeks ago, I'm not sure where everyone is tonight, the weather, but.
All right.
I don't want to belabor this, but I would say if we put in 1/3 of this and we had a conventional stormwater basin, you would have far more, you would have impact from that. But I'm infiltrating this. I'm not doing that. So really this is, I can't think of any way we can make this better from your standpoint.
Not building it?
I don't think it would make it from a drainage standpoint. I don't think that would help.
Won't hurt us.
Fair enough, yes, sir.
I'd just like to reiterate again, on the meetings that I've come to, and I know Jack and the attorney are probably tired of hearing us complain about the water pump, but from the initial meetings with the village and them passing the zoning, or the ability for the project to come up to the zoning board, there's been no guarantee from Webster that anything that the developer has said regarding water or the residents, that there's going to be a guarantee to the surrounding residents for that development as to any potential derogatory events.
Okay.
And no concessions from them for the neighbors in the neighborhood.
Okay.
And again, I think we're at the, I think what should be considered, I think it was mentioned earlier, is about the fact that upcoming is our site plan review. Okay, so it's just, maybe it's a matter of, I don't know that it's not that your voice hasn't been heard. I think they're listening to you. But the fact is that, remember where, what as Mr. Mayor said, what is the relevancy of what we're doing here tonight?
But you say that every meeting.
Okay.
Every meeting you say the same thing. You say, this is only about this, so we should not worry about it. But
Okay.
everything keeps getting passed and it's gonna be built without any
I guess I would,
concessions.
I guess I would
You
just,
downplay
I guess I
every
would
meeting.
just say that
Here's
you
what it- just
let
hold on
someone
one
finish
second.
their.
Yeah, you
what they're saying.
downplay it every meeting though. It's
Here's
very
what I
frustrating.
say.
I won't interrupt you in the future, if you just don't interrupt me. The point was that there is a time and a place we're asking for a variance here, we're not.
Understood, and here's what I will say to that. We will come to a decision within our legally required timeframe. And the other thing that I want to protect, whether I agree or disagree with people, is that everybody will have every opportunity to speak their concerns. They may leave here and say, I disagree with him, or I agree with him, but they're not going to leave here and say, we didn't get a chance to speak. And recognizing that some of it is well outside of our purview. I still want them to have that opportunity.
Oh, for sure, and we've
I know you have.
We've taken every opportunity, we've gone above and beyond that. Not only we had several hearings before the village board pertaining to the zoning, this is the second meeting before the planning board 2 weeks ago. On top of that, we had an open house, which we spoke to this gentleman over here, Jack did for over an hour, about these issues. So I'm not saying that I wasn't at any point saying that someone's voice should not be heard. My point was that your voice, I believe, is being heard, was my point. Would you agree with me on that?
I'm hearing it, and so yes, and I suspect you'll hear it again.
So the point was that everyone's voice is being heard, and I assume that as we talked about at the planning board meeting too, or before the planning board, that those objections will be taken into consideration when we're
fair enough.
2 weeks ago tonight, and then when we're before the planning planning board.
Okay. All right, and I saw another hand go. Two of them, all right, yes ma'am, ladies first.
Laurel Bruns at 1455 Ridge Road, and I just wanted to say that, of course, I agree with my neighbor Kim here, and I just want to urge the board to not grant zoning for 14 buildings. That is just too many buildings for a 13-acre site. And it's been, I mean, especially for a site that's been in unnatural habitat for over 40 years. It just seems too saturated, and it needs to be more in compliance to the existing area.
Very good, thank you for your comments. Mayor Gable.
I just wanted to kind of circle back around again to reiterate the fact that had they stuck with their original plan of 13 buildings, we would not be here this evening in front of the zoning board, is my understanding. But with discussions with various members of the board and code enforcement, what they felt aesthetically would be more acceptable by splitting up those buildings on Phillips Road. It was not really, it was kind of, that's the reason why we're here, because it went from 13 to 14 buildings. During the discussions with respect to a couple statements were made regarding this project saving Main Street, that was never said. Nobody ever said we're going to save Main Street. Obviously, if you have an infiltration of upper income people, that's going to help with the village and the businesses, which is why the businesses are proponents of it. That's just common sense. But I just wanted to, come back around and say why I believe we're here is because of, we're going from 13 to 14 buildings as a result of discussions that were had.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, and obviously I would echo what the mayor said. I mean, we're not, and I think as Jack said earlier, we're not having the maximum number of units in building. We're not cramming this in there to have as many possible people as we can in there. We're not using the maximum amount of coverage that we can. This, as the mayor said, this is a result of over. We started talking about this project last summer. This is a result of what would be most aesthetically pleasable in townhouse unit community is by having the 14 buildings. It's not cramming it in there. If anything, I think because there will be space in between the townhomes, it'll seem like it's less crammed in there than if you did one giant one, I guess.
Or if they were all 8 units.
Right, if you moved it over to 8 units, we're at 13, you'll have 104. Thank you.
Right, and so the actual variance request amounts to 0.04 acres per building, what I would argue would be a de minimis request.
Heard. All right. Anyone else? All right, any comments or questions? We've sat and listened to.
Can I say one last thing?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that the developer, made that concession with the village way back, but had they not made that aesthetic change, they would have never made it past. It would have been dead in the water. That the village asked them, it would have been gone. You know what I mean? They had to do that. Now they're at the point that they don't feel like they have to really make any concessions because everything keeps getting passed along. So, regardless, it was very nice that they made that change, but it would be nice to go back to less units.
Well, see,
Less
that's
permeable space.
the whole problem with this, is as I look at it, they don't have to go to less units. They can build 13 units, they don't have to come for any regulatory approvals, they can push themselves up to the max of 0.25 of the land space, and then add your sidewalks and covering, you're worse, and they do it without this process. There's no public hearing required, that would be in compliance. So they're down below that, and they have to come here for this. And then they have to go through this hearing approval. Maybe it's a good thing. I don't know yet, but I'm looking at it like that. But thank you.
I think that it shows the history of
You have to bless.
the
Go ahead.
Thank you.
That's if we could have the last word for
Thank
one.
Well, we'll all, I'll have the last word here, by the way, all right?
The point,
Thank you.
the point is only that it shows the history since we started talking about this last summer, that my client, the developer, is willing to work with the Village of Webster. We plan on having this be a partnership with the village, in that I mentioned, my client's not building this and selling it off to Mark IV, okay? Our goal is to maintain it. We've maintained our property in Chili and Gates for over 10 years. It's a proposal to be a partner with the village, not to get in, make our money, and get out. And just as we talked about, the concession that we did make to work with the village, that just exemplifies it right there.
Thank you. Kim, you want to say anything?
No, because he'll probably have to say something. He's an attorney,
No, be
so
nice.
but
Be
no,
nice.
go ahead.
All right.
I'll let him have the last word.
Okay, then I will close that open discussion portion from the public for and or against this. Board members, do you have any questions that you want to pose directly to the two gentlemen that are here, or comments you'd like to express?
Have you guys talked to, sorry, I'm just wondering, have you guys talked to anybody at the town of Webster to see about that ditch that goes to the culvert at Ridge Road? And if there's any way that they can look at doing something with that? I mean, I know you talked about, Jeff wanting to know the size rate, but I'm assuming the state sized that, 50, 60 years ago when they did Ridge Road. And they were trying to prevent flooding from somewhere upstream, so they sized that accordingly. But I didn't know if there's a way that, does the existing creek need to be reshaped so that it kind of confines all that water inside the boundaries of that creek?
That's a good question, and the only answer I can give you is the way that the infiltration basin is designed. It's not designed technically to have the water exit into the stream, that the overflow is designed for above the 100-year floodplain. I don't know what else to.
I would say that one thing that you can do is, I think you're within your official capacity, send a note to the chairman of the planning board and say, this wasn't within our purview, but it is yours, and I think you ought to address it.
I'd like to make a comment on that too. I promised you at one point that I would try and contact the state DOT about the culvert.
Yes, you did.
I did make a call to somebody, I don't remember who it was, and I never heard back, but I can pursue that again. But as I said at the meeting, I'm not optimistic about that because they'll be concerned if they make the culvert bigger that they cause flooding somewhere downstream. But that's not my issue, so I will make another call and see if I can get some input from them as to whether they would be willing to upsize that culvert. I did notice when I was out there one day when it was been raining hard and it was flowing very fast, the culvert was maybe a third full and it was really moving. There's a lot of slope there coming to that culvert. So when that culvert is open, it carries a lot of water. Whether that's enough or not, I don't know. Somebody mentioned something about blockage of a culvert. Whenever you block a culvert, it doesn't work. And maybe it's a maintenance thing. I don't know. When I was out there, there'd been a lot of rain and I didn't see the flooding, but I didn't walk the full extent of the stream either.
You thought it had enough slope that the head would push it through the culvert at
Well,
that time?
everything's relative. There was a lot of slope, the culvert was open and a lot of water was going through it. So it has quite a bit of capacity when it's not blocked. And even downstream of the culvert, there was good slope, so it was moving very well. I don't know what causes your problem, and I don't know what capacity it would have to be to avoid that. And I don't know if there's anything upstream that's a problem too. But I just mentioned, I did tell you I would make the call. I did make the call. I haven't followed through. I will do that again, I promise.
Thank you.
But I can't.
Thank you.
Obviously, I can't guarantee.
Appreciate you at least making that effort.
Mark, I know the questions, don't have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a comment for Will. You were talking about the creek. In the early 1970s, the creek was straightened out by the town. It used to have more of a contour, and they straightened it out. You may be able to find some records of that. It was deepened, and a lot of the soil that was in the creek at that time then was deposited on, by request, it was deposited up on the, our properties. Gave it a little more grade. It was quite stony gravel, and then there was some clay. But that was straightened out. And then when the development on the corner of, in the village, on the corner of Phillips and West, across from this project,
Carlin Estates.
that was developed. As I recall, the creek used to run through that and was visible, and there were trees. And I think that's all culverted underneath there.
That's correct.
From the end. A large, that's the large, big 12-foot culverts that they put in and covered. And that gets the flow into the little pipe on our side of the road. But the drainage pipe on Ridge Road was the same. That wasn't changed. So they straightened it and got a more direct flow as to having a curving flow that could in part slow it down from the 70s.
But they also, just so you know, they also put that retention pond in there. And the retention pond that's there at Heartland Estates does two things. One is water quality and also quantity. And so what they do is they put a pond in to slow the amount of water from that particular site once it goes into the storm system. So it's designed so that it doesn't overwhelm the system like you were thinking that maybe, because the pipe was buried, that it's going to be a problem. Well, they put that storm facility in there to prevent that from happening. So.
Well, the water's still coming from somewhere, and it's eroding our banks and flooding some of the lower level properties. I would apologize to some of my neighbors that have been to the earlier meetings that are more directly involved with the flooding, but I would assume that they've kind of given up on the aspect of having any relief.
Understand.
Thank you. I thought that might help. It'd be interesting to look that up, Will. I think you'll find it.
Yeah, I had a lot of questions for the town, and they had some good answers, so thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for either of the gentlemen here who have presented so patiently to us? All right. Thank you very much. All right, so what we have on the table in front of us is a request for a variance. We have two things that we have to do. First of all, there's the seeker. I believe that even though there has been a long form done at the time that it was moved over from PDU to RM, and there was a negative declaration, that we should reaffirm that. So that would be number one. Number two then, once that is done, and declare ourselves the lead agency on that. After that, if you are inclined, a motion to grant a variance to allow, and I would make it simple if you're going to do it, to allow 14 units on a 13.4 acre site, listed as, and give it the name. Thank you.
Excuse me, could you say 14 buildings, not units, please?
Understood.
Thank you.
14 buildings. I guess units would, to you, connotate one townhouse.
Yeah, right. One.
Understood. Or, in the converse of that, you were free to make a motion to go the other way. But one way or the other, first thing we have to do is address the seeker issue.
This is at the advice of our attorney, the motion, that this matter for Brittany Woods be considered an unlisted action under seeker and will have no significant adverse environmental impact.
And? Us.
And that the zoning board be the
Lead agency for this. Yep. Okay, so what we have on there is a a motion to make ourselves the lead agency and to reaffirm the negative declaration. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So we have that seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, so we've taken care of the seeker issue yet again with another negative declaration. We'll be the lead agency. Second thing we need here is a motion. I think I've explained that a couple of times, so I'll just let that go.
To get things moving, I'll make a motion that we grant a variance to Brittany Woods to allow 14 townhouse buildings on the 13.4 acre tract
Known as?
known as Brittany Woods.
There you go. We have a motion on the table to grant the variance as requested. Do I have a second?
What's the timing of it?
We'll just let that go. Okay. And I will say we have no second. That motion doesn't carry at this time. Do we have another motion? Okay. Then what I will do is, this motion didn't carry tonight. What I will do is I will call this board back into business next Thursday night at 7:30. If we can't be in this room, we'll be in one of the other rooms, but we will now meet weekly until we make a decision. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, would you want us at that meeting? Will there be-
You are free to be there, and might not be a bad idea if you or someone could be there.
The public hearing portion of the testimony portion is completed, correct?
The public portion of this is completed. The only reason we're coming back into session is either for executive committee and legal advice from you, or to vote again. Yes, sir. Mayor Cahill.
This is probably a question for you. Would they be allowed to, or what would be the vehicle for them to modify their plans to put it back to 13 buildings so they don't have to come in front of this zoning board, and therefore they wouldn't be required to request a variance? Could they take that avenue?
Yeah, that's up to them.
Okay.
So, currently, what I'm seeing is May 25th. We will meet right back here at 7:30. And whatever comes after that.
I probably won't be here.
Understood? Understood? Yes, sir.
Since it's a special meeting, can we meet earlier?
We can meet at any time you would like.
Anytime the board would like, actually. I'll leave to the board.
What do you guys like?
6:30.
6:30.
Can we meet earlier?
6:30.
Then 6:30?
Yeah, well, because I have my planning board Thursday.
Would you like to meet on Wednesday? That's the 24th. Oh, wait a second. Scratch that. We can meet earlier, but if we're only meeting for the purpose of legal advice or to take another vote, we don't need long for that.
Well, my planning board starts at 6:30.
Get out of here, how do they do that?
We do a workshop before a public hearing.
Wait a minute. Could we vote on 13 buildings on 14 acres as a final settlement right now, and then you guys?
But we can't vote on that. We can't vote on that because that's not before us.
Right.
We can't make up the amendment to request the variance.
No action on your part would be required for that in any event.
Understood, good point. Now, if this board doesn't come to a decision in how many days, David?
62.
If this board doesn't come to a decision in 62 days, the motion is granted by whatever the title of that is.
Correct.
That's why I'm gonna bring them back into Business Weekly. Okay?
Okay, thank you for your time.
All right. What are you looking at? Oh, we still didn't come to a
Yeah.
conclusion at the time. All right, 6 o'clock,
The 24th.
6 PM, the 25th.
25th.
Thursday, right?
And that is open or closed to the public?
Open.
It's open to the public, but we've already had the public comment, so what we won't do is go through another session of questions and answers. We've got that all on the record. What we're gonna do is say,
Review it and, okay.
right. Okay, 6 PM, next Thursday, the 25th. All right, thank you all very much. Closing items for this board, in addition to that, anything on our June calendar?
No. You're free.
Okay.
I'll make the motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Bill wants to go home and sleep. Seconded?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye, opposed? None.
This is an old, this is